Hope has a heartbeat, and it comes in the form of a chaplain and religious affairs airman. But it can also be found in a wingman, guardian, peer, friend, and even in the eyes of a stranger.
Hope leads us to cross the I am out of a seemingly impossible situation. We don't focus on what it looks like, what it feels like, how long it's been lingering on, or how long it might continue to linger on. Instead, hope causes us to focus on what's possible. That begins with an internal thought. That internal thought might be, what if this situation can improve? What if my relationship can be revived? Or what if I can figure out how to make peace with the demise of the relationship? Whatever the internal thought may be, it needs to be shared with a hope-filled person. And when it's shared with a hope-filled person, that hope-filled person probably can't make many guarantees, but they can guarantee at least one thing, and that's this. Whatever you go through, we'll go through it and grow through it together.
It's about acceptance, inclusion, and genuine care in a military culture that often struggles to keep its promises to our young airmen and guardians. Let me be real for a second. I've been that airman. I have sat out of many chapel parking lots dreading to walk it through those chapel doors because I did not feel valued. I've also been that airman that is hid in my office, immersed in work because I didn't want to face my broken marriage. I've also been that airman, that leader, that wingman that has failed over and over again to keep her word to the airmen around her, even though I was trying my hardest. But it was my connections with hope-filled people that brought me through it. So the Hope Spiritual Fitness Initiative is an active movement towards purposeful and meaningful engagement. This engagement is active.
It's active because the Chaplain Corps has been called to action. Our senior leaders, airmen, guardians alike, they are challenging us to lean into the vision of our Corps to really be all the more than we normally are, to be greater, more consistent, active listeners, to be trustworthy counselors, to be people who are intentional about creating opportunities for connection, specifically for people who often feel isolated, invisible, and lost. This is our opportunity to really amplify spiritual fitness to fortify the warfighter, our LOE, number one. So ultimately, bottom line is this: we must be ready. Not thinking about getting ready, not getting ready to get ready, but ready. That's the mandate. But be ready for what?
We must be ready to serve in a wide range of military operations, from humanitarian relief and peacetime, but even conflict and crisis. Our senior leaders yesterday, over and over and over again, kept saying we need to be everywhere for everyone. But how do we do that with limited manpower? How? And how do we truly care for airmen all over the place in times of crisis? Because that's when the stuff gets real, and that's when the stuff gets hard.
The evacuation operation from Kabul is accelerating, with more than 10,000 people airlifted out of Afghanistan in just the past 24 hours. But thousands more remain to be rescued, and with just over a week left before the August 31st deadline set by President Biden, the Taliban said today that they would not agree to an extension, no matter what the U.S. and its allies and partners say. With the support of the Pulitzer Center, Jane Ferguson reports again tonight from Kabul's airport.
Another morning at Kabul airport brings with it more people and more desperate pleas to be allowed in. Every day, thousands of men and women clutching pieces of paper, military ID cards, even old photographs, search for someone to talk to. An immigration official, anyone with answers. All they find are heavily armed soldiers.
So lots of documents, but unfortunately we don't have any answers from the SIV. This is the.
So you applied for an SIV?
We applied, but we didn't get any answers from the SIV.
When did you apply?
Last week.
Last week.
Yes.
You applied whenever you heard that the evacuation was happening?
Yes.
SIVs, or Special Immigrant Visas, are meant to be for those who worked as interpreters for the U.S. military here. Getting one has for years been an infuriatingly slow and complex process. Earlier this month, the State Department said Afghans who didn't qualify for the SIV program but were still at risk for their affiliation with the U.S., like those who worked for USAID-funded projects or American news outlets, could apply to the U.S.'s refugee program.
We're working hard and as fast as we can to get people out.
In reality, this was too late. As the Taliban took over Kabul 9 days ago, many were left unprepared, not least of all, the U.S. government.
We didn't have time for the visa and everything because my father was
This process was too fast?
Yes, the Taliban thinks that my father is working with NATO and he is a spy, foreign spy. Okay, we need help. I don't know why they are not accepting these documents, but we have lots of documents.
But the SIV, they say that they need you to have an application number.
I know.
Do you think that they'll give you a number and maybe you can come back?
I know. I think we don't have time. My family is hiding in Kabul.
A few have resorted to waving the flags of the nations they work with. Everyone has some sort of paperwork, but the system of checking has collapsed. Even passport holders from NATO countries have trouble getting through. The American soldiers here are not immigration officials and have little idea either as to who qualifies to be allowed in. An informal rule of U.S. passports and green card holders only has become the new reality.
So the people on this side are being held here by American soldiers, but over here, we'll go this way, we have a massive crush of people, and the British forces are trying to keep them back.
We show this video to show you the chaos when there was 20,000 refugees trying to leave. I don't know if you know, but there was one chaplain in the midst of it all, in the sea of trauma. And if you were to watch the entire video, in which I can provide the link, or you can YouTube it, it's about 20 minutes long, and you will see the chaplain in the background scrambling, trying to help not only the children, but even the soldiers. And then you hear the soldiers in the background yelling at the chaplain, "Chaplain, do you have a minute? Chaplain, I need you over here. Chaplain." Now, unfortunately, it was an Army chaplain. If it was Air Force, they would have had a religious affairs airman. Just saying. But the reality is that's the life we do live in, still currently. And our leaders yesterday told us to be ready for tomorrow's fight. And we can't do it all with one chaplain. We can't do it all with just one religious support team. And so, are we ready?
Our nation asks us to do hard things that oftentimes pull at our heartstrings, all while trying to manage crises going on in our personal lives because we're not exempt from going through and from experiencing chaos of some sort in our own lives. We all need someone, probably more often than not, to have a minute, to hear us, to hold us, to wipe our tears, to encourage us, and maybe even to escort us to someone who can help us more deeply than they can.
To give all airmen and guardians their minute. Not only their minute, but safe space to talk, we have to mobilize Hope Specialists. Hope Specialists will be volunteers who are compassionate, forward-leaning, and trained to intervene. They will be able to guide our warriors to the appropriate agency or even person that best meets their needs. These Hope specialists will also orient and reorient our people when life happens. Why?
Because life is going to happen. Call it life, call it hardship. It's impolite, inconsiderate, and inconvenient. I don't know about you, but usually hardship or life doesn't cause a QR code to appear before me and ask me if I want to opt in. I don't know about you, but hardship or life doesn't usually knock on my door and say, Miosha, is now a good time? No, life or hardship typically shows up for me like this. Boom, I'm here. What are you going to do? And it's up to us to respond. But the good news is that we get to choose our response. Some people don't choose well or don't know how to choose at all. And that is where our call to action comes in. We, as members of the Chaplain Corps, can come alongside Hope specialists, or they can come alongside us, however you want to look at it. They multiply our ability to help train people on how to respond well to any given situation that life shows up and says, I'm here, deal with me.
It's an incredible program because it has allowed me the opportunity to work with my peers at a deeper level. I get to be someone that they can come up to and talk to about anything that's going on with them, whether it's work or personal life. I also get the opportunity to work with my leadership at all levels, from my supervisor up until the Chief of Master Sergeant of the Air Force. And we get to tell them what's going on with our airmen at the lowest level and how we can help boost their morale and just boost the quality of work that they're producing when they have a good environment.
The reason I joined was mainly because I wanted friends. I wanted to create relationships that would last as long as my career and longer. I enjoy helping people, so I laid down the groundwork and worked with the chaplains to help them create a community that could last this far. I am very proud with how far it has gone in reaching the entire Air Force. I joined the Torchbearers when it was first getting started. I originally joined because I heard that they volunteer and they have lots of good connections between different airmen. I joined because I wanted friends, but it's turned into more of that. I have a community I can rely upon and I can use whenever I'm in a circumstance. But that's not only that, I can also use that to other people's advantage as well. When other people need help or need something from their own community, they know they can rely on me to be there for them. I can come to their aid. With this, I can also go into my squadron and give that same aid and caring to my squadron and everyone I work with.
Torchbearers, now Hope Initiative, how awesome is that? I helped start the program when it was the Torchbearers, when there was just 5 or 6 of us, and to what it's become now, again, amazing. But the reason I joined was because it was a volunteer program. Anybody across the base who needed any type of help or needed really anything, they knew that they could call the Torchbearers and that we would be there to help them.
Just a few Hope specialists that you just heard from by way of testimony. And I would describe their testimonies as a longing for connection, spiritual fitness, and resilience, every single one of them. And we have opportunity at X number of installations represented in this room today to join the movement.
In this life, we will bear great witness to sorrow and anguish, but we will also experience breathless love and joy. Our hearts are going to be stretched to capacity, and it's going to take a tribe, a community of hope ambassadors to live our lives more fully. So we ask everyone to answer this call to action. We ask everyone in this room as senior RSTs to make room in your annual ministry plan for all things hope. This is not a program. It's a movement.
So here's the question. What's stopping you from joining this movement? Our hope is to reduce your reasons, remove your excuses, and gain your support at the local level. So we'll transition into our panel at this time. As they come up, I'll tell you who they are. Chaplain Holmquist, representing the Shepherd Beta Test Team. Chaplain Blackburn, representing the Davis-Monthan Beta Test Team, and he's also one of the leads on the Hope Spiritual Fitness Initiative Working Group. Chaplain Sessions, representing the Cannon Beta Test Team. Staff Sergeant McConis led the Team Phoenix in Saudi Arabia and is on the Hope Spiritual Fitness Initiative Working Group. Staff Sergeant Grell is the SME on Helper Helper. He also led the White Rope program at Joint Base San Antonio Lackland and is on the Hope Spiritual Fitness Initiative Working Group. Senior Airman Shields is a Hope specialist at Lakenheath and also had the privilege of briefing the Secretary of the Air Force on the significance of hope. And Senior Master Sergeant Echevarria is our moderator for the day. She leads the beta test teams, and she is also on the Hope Spiritual Fitness Initiative Working Group. Thank you.
Thank you. So, as you know, I'm a senior Echevarria. I'm getting used to that. It just happened recently, so appreciate all of you for your time and your attention. What I want to do is, as you stare at those wonderful faces and they stare back at you, there's a video, and unfortunately, you know how things happen. Things just don't work out sometimes. But I believe wholeheartedly on listening to Chaplain Fisher and what she went through and why the Hope Initiative is a force multiplier for most of us. So I did talk to our team in the back, and so they're going to show us the actual piece that we want to show you. And please think through what you just heard from amazing Chaplain Wilson and Senior Carter, who have done a wonderful job of presenting and calling us to action. So let us see if our team is able to figure those time stamps. In the meantime, just bear with us and think and reflect on what she's talking about and how she's going to experience that. We're going to go on because this is flexibility is kind of the key, but it's also adaptability, right? So let's move on. So you heard a little bit about some of our panelists here, and I kind of want them to give you their own perspective of who they are and where they come from. So we'll start from whenever they want to start. Be brave. No one is going to come at you, and if they do, Chief Chambers will block them. Yep. So, yeah, so go for it.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Perfect. Hi, y'all. My name is Staff Sergeant Lexi McConis, and I currently am stationed at McGuire, working at the Expeditionary Center. So I'm pulled out of the chapel right now, working for pre-deployment training. And I work in the Hope Initiative, work in the policy and framework departments, and I'm very excited to be here today.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Senior Airman Nina Shields. I am over at RAF Lakenheath. I'm a dental assistant. Chaplain Zecker, are you taking pictures? I got to show my mom what I'm doing right now. No, I'm super happy to be here. I got to let this soak in. Born and raised in Oklahoma, but don't be mad at me, but I am a Longhorns fan, so I know I'll get a lot of bash for that, but no, I'm super happy to be here and just kind of express my experience as a Hope specialist and a previous torchbearer.
Don't judge me if I don't know how to work a mic. Staff Sergeant Sean Grell, I'm from FE Warren, part of the Allies Partners and Buy-In team, and then the framework team. I got to work with the White Rope team at Lackland quite a bit, and I talked with Chief Chambers last year and wanted to see if there was anything we could do to help expand that program and make sure that everyone gets to take advantage of the benefits of it. So very happy to be here.
Good morning, Jeremiah Blackburn. I just PCS from Goodfellow, where we had an awesome White Rope program, and then was privileged to be part of this working group, part of the framework, so developing just the outline of what we can do, and also part of the timekeepers, developing the POAM. And now I'm at Davis-Monthan, and we're part of the beta test working team and setting that up. So privileged to be here.
Good morning. I'm Tim Sessions, the wing chaplain. Somebody likes me. One person out there. I'm the wing chaplain at Cannon Air Force Base. I had introduction to White Rope program when I was at Altus Air Force Base, and I really loved the relationships I was able to build with the younger airmen as they were coming in. But at Cannon, we're somewhat isolated, and that's a big problem for our airmen, feeling disconnected. And so to see that we're able to move that over into just a regular Air Force base rather than just a training environment was very appealing to me, so that we can make sure we're taking care of our airmen and keeping them connected. So when the opportunity was presented, I jumped on it because I feel like it's value added, not only to my team, but most importantly to our airmen who are struggling out there.
Rolf Holmquist, the wing chaplain at Shepherd, and glad to be here with this panel. There are the leaders right here along the way. So I'm blessed to be in a training wing with thousands of students, and some of you have had that opportunity. I've only been there a year. This is my first time being in a training wing. Wow, what a lot of students. So any given day at Shepherd Air Force Base, there's 5,000 students. They rotate out about every 3 or 4 months, so you're talking about 15,000 airmen a year. And of course, the blessing is we have a White Rope program also. Just love it dearly. And the thing that got me excited about Hope is all these White Ropes would look at me and look at my team and say, is there something at my next base that I can continue to do what I'm doing here? And before, we would have to say no. Now we can say yes.
Well, thank you so much. And I don't want to ignore, but you may have seen others that are wearing a Hope t-shirt around you. You're in the midst of you. They're also part of our team. They worked really hard, or they're part of a beta test right now and trying and struggling to try to put this initiative and way of life forward. So please be mindful that they're around you. You can ask them questions, and there's going to be a booth over on the side after this session and any session throughout the day where you can come in over and talk to us. And what we want to do throughout this panel is be real. And I think we're going to set this stage with the video, which is now ready. Again, I want you to think and reflect on Chaplain Fisher's words and also on the journalists that interviewed and kind of showcase what is going on in the midst of the sea of trauma.
While politicians in Washington scramble to manage the fallout from this crisis, American and Allied soldiers are dealing with it face to face. Almost 6,000 U.S. Marines and paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne Division are on the ground to support the emergency evacuations. No training can prepare soldiers for something like this. A sea of human trauma. It's a near impossible task. One profoundly testing, shaking tempers, and bringing out acts of compassion. Inside the U.S. Air Base, the chaplain for the 82nd Airborne, Lieutenant Colonel Pinky Fisher, in her 16 years of service and spiritual counseling in the military, says she has never had to deal with so many in emotional need.
How in demand are you right now?
Wow. From the time I get up to the time I go to bed, and I mean, I'm getting probably 3 hours of sleep a night.
Because people need to talk to you.
They'll come off shift or even during shift. They'll see me and they'll say, Chaplain, do you have a minute? That's usually the call sign. Chaplain, do you have a minute?
The moral injury of having to turn people away and play a role in their pain is weighing on many here.
Some of them are married with children of their own. And I think they're looking at local nationals and they see their family in their own eyes. And I think that's what pulls them, especially children. I think that pulls every human being is to see children. So anytime you see a child hurt or they look like they're hurting, that pulls on you. And I think that's what's tugging on a lot of soldiers. They are ready to fight an enemy, but you don't touch kids.
Kids are especially vulnerable to being lost in the crowds. This missing poster appealing for information about a little girl. On the US base, a collection of lost young boys separated from their parents at the gates are being cared for by the US military.
He didn't know if his parents in the USA or in Afghanistan.
These boys have been through a terrifying ordeal and still aren't sure when or where they'll see their mom and dad. There were so many people at the gate and everyone was pushing, this little boy tells us. For the ones whose parents are on planes to America, officials here have written USA on the back of their little hands. They will follow behind soon. Joining these long lines by the runway, shuffling between a life left behind and an unknown new one. These are the fortunate few, for whom promises made by politicians have been kept. Most others will bed down the best they can outside the airport gates, waiting for another day and another chance to make it out of here.
And Jane joins us again from Kabul. Jane, so moving to see.
So as you see that video and kind of think through Chaplain Fisher's experience, why we are even drawing that forward with the Hope Initiative, I hope you can see the connection that when everything goes at that level, one chaplain, one religious affairs, even two RSTs is not going to be able to navigate the sea of trauma. As the journalist said, there's no training that can prepare you for this. But what we're doing right now is try to mitigate that with our Hope specialists and with our teams that are being more and more aware of how there's a connection of how we can multiply our forces, how we can be able to take care of ourselves, but also respond in such a speed as it was required in that operation. So now I'm going to turn it over to my panel. I'm going to make it really hard for them, hopefully not. And this is going to be a genuine conversation. We wanted transparency. Not every beta test is doing fantastic, right? Not every beta test is like, yay, I love Hope. They might not. They're still struggling with. There's others that are completely full set, like, let's go. We have 100 people ready. We are force multipliers. We're making this happen. So there's a spectrum of that. And I think it's fair that all of you hear from each one and where they're at. So I'm going to start with the first question. I'm going to throw it through Chaplain Holmquist right here. What is your take on Hope Initiative? What do you think it is for you at your base as a training base that is also having the White Robe program? And why now? Why is now the right time?
Well, you probably already heard about the book that I read. And again, the only reason I read it is because I was headed to a training base. And then I was going to be experiencing Generation Z in waves. The book is called Generation Z Unfiltered by Tim Elmore and Andrew McPeak. What this book tells you, besides that it is packed in the back with many studies of what's going on with that generation, it says that this generation is the most anxious population, has the most stress, or is more prone to go to mental health than any other generation that we have seen. There's a lot of different variables for that reason. They grew up more on social media than the millennials did. There's different experiences they didn't have that other generations did, but there are also some things that they have that we didn't have when we grew up. And so watching the White Ropes and getting to hear their stories, that's what's really great. Every Sunday there is a rope up and rope down at our chapel. And so they either put on the rope or they're taking off the rope because they're about to leave and they're about to PCS. The stories they say on that stage is really hard to hear. And it goes back to every reason why we all came into the United States Air Force. I mean, how many times have you interviewed someone who is becoming a religious affair? Raise your hand. Has anybody done that? Most have. If you ask people why they want to come into this career field, and I say this career field because Chaplain Corps is chaplains in religious affairs, they will tell you it's because they want to care for people. They do. We all do, right? And so it was no-brainer when I was working with the White Ropes, and as we were talking about having this initiative go over to the operational field, why would we leave this goodness at the training base, right? Why would we let this core group of people that are so excited to want to do something, why would we leave it there and not bring it to the next space? And I end with this. Each one of us, a lot of times when we were first coming through the Air Force, we would be a group chaplain, right? We'd be in charge of thousands. There's no way you're going to be able to reach those thousands. We all know that. But what if we could put points of light in those squadrons in that group that was trained so that they could look to the left and to the right, and they could be your point of contact, so when you're an RST for a group, you can get in there and be laser focused and do exactly what you need to do at exactly the right time, because there's no way you're going to be able to handle 1,500 people or 2,000 people. So again, force multiplier, I was in.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. My next question is going to be for Senior Airman Shields. You could have joined any other organization. Why did you join Hope?
So I'm going to get some backlash from this, but I'm actually the vice president of ACE Council and Airmen Committed to Excellence. I've gone to a handful of the Rising Six meetings. I am also a patient safety coach for the med group. So I feel like I've had my fair share of trying to find different organizations, other groups out there, what fits me. And every time I always gravitated towards back to Hope, back to the chapel. They just have the headquarters where we're trained and where we have our meetings. It's just so welcoming. It's so Chaplain Zecker's personality, like he's goofy, he's fun. And after a long day of work, like that's what I need to see. That's what I want to come to. And so yeah, of all the other organizations, like I love ACE Council, I'm not gonna lie, I love the professionalism, I love the growth, the mentorship, speaking with the top 3, the 5, 6, that's great, but Hope gives me something completely different. Hope gives me that, that safe space I guess I'm looking for. And what I like about our meetings that we do is we just do like 5-10 minutes of just talking. Hey, how was your day? How was work? And we're talking at the wing level, right? So anybody comes, so you get to hear like security forces, maintainers. I'm medical, so I don't get to have much exposure to different jobs of like airmen. So that's like my window to get to talk to other airmen. So of all the other organizations that I feel like I've had a fair share of being a part of, and I can just kind of tell that they're still kind of figuring out how to grow their group. But Hope by far has a piece of my heart, and I just love the impact and so much that it's given me that I feel more like I need to give back more because of how much it's given me and all the opportunities. I'm literally sitting here talking to you guys, the chaplains, like what a moment. So definitely prefer Hope, but don't tell the ACE Council I said that as vice president. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. My next question is going to be for 2 of our chaplains, Chaplain Blackburn and Chaplain Sessions. What has been your challenge in standing up a Hope initiative?
I think messaging is one of the challenges. So it's a new program. I can ask you, how many of you think your commanders really know what you do as a chaplain and what you bring? There's times where I feel like they underutilize us because they don't really know what we have to bring. And so it's our job to message what we can bring to the fight and let them know the assets that we have as Chaplain Corps members. And with the Hope Initiative as well, we can say, not only do you have your chaplains, not only do you have your religious affairs, but you have airmen in your own formations who are able to help your airmen with the spiritual needs that they have. And so helping message that to them and getting their buy-in is a challenge, but if you message it well, it's a no-brainer, I think, for most commanders to say, I want to be a part of this program.
So getting to Davis-Monthan, we had a lot of good things going. We have like over 400 people trained in assist, and we have this little badge that we wear. My maintenance True North guy has Airmen in Action team, and it's a bunch of NCOs that really help support him in the ministry that he does. And we have a loft council. And so we have all these great things going on. And so now how do you transition that to hope? Seems easier, but then they've got that identity that people have like gravitated towards and say, hey, well, and so now you've got to merge that. And I think the other thing that you kind of heard yesterday is we're giving a framework and saying, here is the basic shelter that you guys can grow. And you do it yourselves. What fits for you? And so sometimes we like black and white. We like, hey, tell me what to do. You know, background checks is easy. I know what to do. I know how to do it. But to be given something and say, here's something for your base, and it's kind of undefined, it brings some uncertainty. And so getting to talk with airmen and NCOs and saying what looks right for our base, what looks right, and helping grow from there is an awesome privilege, but that undefinedness can create a little bit of a challenge at times. So
Thank you, sir. Thank you both. Excuse me. Next question is going to be shared with Sergeant Grell and Sergeant McCannis. I want your perspective as NCOs. What has been some of the challenges? Both of you have been part of some other initiatives related to the White Rope or Hope. And so as an NCO, what were some of your challenges?
I think with the White Rope program at Lackland, I think like we said earlier, it's looking for a program that continues on. And speaking with a lot of these airmen, they're very interested in being religious affairs airmen, mainly security forces, because a couple of us on here are previous security forces. So looking for a program that they can continue and making sure that they feel welcome and they know what they're getting into is pretty important for a lot of these airmen.
I think one of the challenges we have, whenever I was deployed in Saudi Arabia, we had Team Phoenix, which is another peer-to-peer program. And one of the challenges we have is you come out and you experience this amazing program that should be worked Air Force-wide. And then you go back to home base and you don't have that there. You don't have that same program or initiative there. I think one of the challenges is that you want to create an initiative that is Air Force-wide and have it to where it is available for everybody, and you have the same rules and structures here and there, but overall you can really make it your own. I think that's one of the biggest challenges I've seen.
Thank you. This question is open to all. Who actually manages? How do you start Hope? Who manages that? How do you decide that? And what cost does that have for you? Anyone can answer.
I'll go first.
Go first.
So each base has different resources. Each base is different. So the blessing I have being at an AFSOC base is we have POAM and POTIF funds. And so different people have different amounts of leverage. And when you have POAMs and POAMs, you've got a longer stick. So it's nice. It's a blessing. So we have what we call, this is a mouthful, but it's a community programs and peer network coordinator, CPPNC. And one of them is a spiritual CPPNC. So that name in of itself fits well with the Hope Initiative. And so we leverage our CPPNC to help stand up the program with a sponsoring RST. And so they go out into the units and kind of get the message out there. We send it out to the whole base and try to recruit folks. And I might be getting ahead of ourselves, but we've had 2 introductory little sessions where we bring people in to tell them what the program's about. And so we already have 42 airmen who have volunteered to be a part of the program. Then they have to go through an interview process, similar to how we kind of onboard religious affairs that want to cross-train. We're going to ask them a lot of questions about what this means to them, and then if they pass, we bring them on, and then they're going to go out and do good things.
Thank you. Anyone else? How did you decide, or were you just told, you're in charge? Go for it. We can be candid. So, I mean, I can tell you what I heard, but go ahead, sir.
Well, again, you heard my story already, so mine's pretty simple. When you work at a training base and you have white ropes, you're just going to gravitate over there. And what I was thinking about when I'm at my wing is that the groups that are not training groups, mission support group, med group. I've got a in-jet flying training wing that's a tenant unit over to the left. Well, why can't they have what we used to call the white ropes or equivalent of? And so we just worked it that way. And I think all of us know you just got to socialize this. Think of it this way, and this is how I would talk to my senior leaders, is what if I could lower the status of discipline stats? I mean, I'm not positive I can do this. This is not the number one thing that will knock it down, but what if I could lower suicidal ideations? What if we could drop some DUIs or sexual assaults? And so we're all about crisis. We're very good at that. But we so much want to do prevention, and this is just a great prevention program. So I would work at it from that level.
Thank you, sir. So I think that's a good segue into perhaps our other panelist members. How has the HOPE initiative or HOPE-like things helped your unit, your wing, accomplish their mission? Anyone can take that question.
Yes, can I go?
Of course.
Okay. Sorry, can you repeat the question one more time so I'm staying on track?
Yes. How has the HOPE initiative or HOPE-like initiative helped your chapel, your unit, your wing accomplish the mission?
Okay, so while you're a HOPE specialist at Lake and Heath, they allow the airmen to create affinity groups. So it's just like a hobby or something that you're interested in. So like right now, there's an airman that created D&D night. I don't know if you guys know what that is, Dungeons and Dragons. Probably the most successful program or that affinity group that we have. He even did like a tournament and had like thousands of dollars of sponsors. Like it's just been a super big hit. But anyway, so we create these affinity groups. So there's another airman that likes hiking. So we go out and we go hike. There's another airman that likes anime night. So she has anime night. So it's just a great way for the airmen to come together, right? And meet other airmen, and then you come together for the same hobby or same interest. And what better way to bring people together, in my opinion, is free food. So I created an affinity group called Ohana Night. HOPE, and being a HOPE specialist in the chapel, they were actually my platform. So I actually had this idea, and I talked to other people about it, but I was kind of getting negative feedback. I was like, it's not going to work. The airmen aren't going to want to show up. I brought the idea to the chapel, to Chaplain Zecker, and no questions, he was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's feed the airmen. So it's where different squadrons around the base cook for the single dorm airmen. It's to break up that monotony of going to work, going to the DFAC, going back to their dorms, bring them over to the chapel. And if that means providing free food, then so be it. So the first one that we launched was 2 months ago, and it was the dental squadron, my squadron, and we had over 200 airmen show up, and it was such a big hit. And the HOPE specialist, this is what hit home for me, is when we had the first Ohana Night, the HOPE specialist, like anyone that's ever hosted anything, you can attest to this, that the stress levels are like out of this world when you're hosting something. So in the midst of the host, I have this plaque. I'm having all the airmen sign it, and because I want to give it to every squadron that sponsors it to say thank you. This is the airmen that showed up. This is the impact that you made. So in the midst of everything, the HOPE specialist created this like team, and they had airmen that were making plates. They had airmen that were putting foil on the plates, and then they had airmen in the cars ready to go to haul all these plates of free food to the airmen that couldn't show up, because we got maintainers that are on swings, we got maintainers that work night shift, we have the medical staff that work overnight, our security forces over at the gate, the fire department. So they managed to like create this team But that's how hope specialists are. That's like it's like embedded in us. Like the moment that we have like a volunteer opportunity, they don't even ask. They just go in and they dive in and they're just like, what do you need? What do you need help with? So they manage to make plates for everybody. But the chapel and Chaplain Zecker and the hope specialists, like they made that happen. They helped me create that. And so now we have it every month. We're literally booked out for the next 7 months, I believe. We got the Chiefs group that signed up. We got the Shirts group that signed up. And so, and what hit home for me was we have an airman that she's super interested. She's security forces. She just PCS'd to our base. And she's fresh from tech school. She's super interested in hope because she was actually a white rope in tech school. So she wanted to be, to do the same thing. She's very gun-ho, and I thanked her because she came to the second one. We've already had 2 or 3 now, and I thanked her at the end of the day. It's 8 o'clock at night, guys. Like it's on a Wednesday. It's a long day, so I thanked her. I said, "Thank you so much. I really appreciate you helping out." She's not even a hope specialist at this point. She's just trying to commit her time and come to the meetings and things like that. And this is how I knew that like I felt like we were going somewhere. Was she said, anything to get me out of my room. That, yeah, hit home. So that made me think, okay, we got something, because that's the thing that I've been told as an airman is what's going to attract airmen to come out, what's going to get them out of their rooms, what's going to get them involved. And if that means free food, I will fight tooth and nail and ask any squadron to cook for the single dorm airmen, because you got to remember a lot of them are fresh from high school. They don't know how to cook. They're just kind of learning as they go. And hope specialists, we're giving them that one less thing that they have to worry about. Come to the chapel, come hang out. You'd be surprised of how many airmen are actually asking, hey, like, what is this? What is hope? How do I get involved? When's your guys' next meeting? So that's a great opportunity for the hope specialists to talk about what we do, and then they just start filtering in more meetings. I also grew up with a single mother, so I had a younger sister. I have a younger sister. She's about the same age as the airmen, so the demographic is, 18 to 24 years old of the airmen. I'm 31, so I'm a little bit older than the rest, but I have this sense of like older sister kind of thing that kicked into me ever since I've been a hope specialist. So if I love being a hope specialist, I love the platform that it's given me. So that's the impact, in my opinion, that I've had the most. And this is only the 3rd Ohana night that we've had of giving the dorm airmen a home-cooked meal away from home. So I'm super excited because it's just the beginning.
Thank you so much. I hope all of us can feel the excitement and hear that testimony of how this Hope Initiative has helped her and her peers. I think it's wonderful that we get to hear that firsthand, and thank you for that. I'm going to move into my next question, which is going to be a little bit more on the practical side. So I'm going to ask Sergeant Grell to tell us a little bit about how do we monitor, if we're gonna gain all this buy-in, get all these volunteers, that's a lot of work.
Yes, ma'am.
What is gonna help us through that work?
So I know we all have experience with volunteering, and one of our biggest issues is recognizing those volunteers and making sure that their time is valued. So I want to shout out Sergeant Reed. She started this volunteer app. She found it, she pushed it to everyone. We were all like, oh, it's whatever. And then as soon as I got to FE Warren, we had our AMC program, and I wanted to find some way where we could track volunteers, get opportunities out there so everyone can kind of be aware of what's going on and, make sure that their time is valued. So we looked into this app, Helper, that Sergeant Reed had for the white ropes at Lackland, and it's been great. We've pushed it out to the beta test locations, and we've had locations that had heard about it that were previously at Lackland that we're like, oh, this is a great app. We want to join the beta test program just because they wanted access to the app. But the app is great. I have some more information at the booths, but it's great for pushing the opportunities out. So if you have your airman dinners that you would like 10 volunteers for, you can push that out there, get 10 volunteers. They can volunteer as little or as much time as they'd like. And it gives airmen great ways to get the information out, because if one of them volunteers, hey, my friend's going to volunteer as well. So you just get more exposure to everyone that you can.
Thank you so much for that. And like he mentioned, if you want more information on the Helper app, it would be on the booth. My next question is going to be specifically to training. So how do we get someone like Airman Shields to be trained up and know who we are as a Chaplain Corps? What are some of those boundaries? What's happening right now? I know it's a long question, but wherever you can fit in training and how you thought through training for your beta test or for your initiative, share with us what does that look like and what are some of the challenges with that too?
Well, one thing is I know that our chaplain schoolhouse is going to come up with modules, so I'm really happy to see that because consistency, standardization across the chaplaincy is going to really pay dividends for Hope. So we have to be consistent in how we train. So there's going to be courses coming out of there. At least that's a concept. Not too sure if we're how far we are down the road. What we've done at Shepherd Air Force Base is want to train our white ropes before I even knew about the Hope Initiative. So we did a baseline of we do safe talk. We also do teach them ethics. We teach them value. We teach them what it is to have good character. So we have created coursework for them, and they have to go through so many courses as a white rope before they become a white rope. So both of those, of course, that's an in-house training, but I know the chaplaincy schoolhouse is talking about doing some modules.
Yes, sir.
Can I add on that real quick? I'm sorry. So as of right now, what we do for our training at Lake and Heath, just recently so chaplains, for one of our meetings, he wanted to teach us on if an airman were to approach us, how do we go about it? So it's actually a fun, interactive lesson. He had two airmen go up. We had one airman that was the airman in crisis, and then we had one airman that was the Hope specialist. We drew an example out of a hat, and then the airman acts out, the airman in crisis acts out like whatever the scenario is, and then the Hope specialist will turn on what we've learned, what we've been taught, on how we should approach it, right? Like, what are our resources? And I just loved his style of Chaplain Zucker's style of teaching, because I felt like that stuck with me the most, is when you're acting out and then you could just see like all the other airmen were actually intrigued and asking more questions when the scenario was over. Hey, Chaplain, so what happens when this airman says this, or what happens with that? I know I haven't personally had like a one-on-one interaction with a airman in crisis yet. I hope that time doesn't come like yesterday, how it was spoken about. Don't be putting out the fires as they come. You know, we should be doing the fire prevention. This is kind of like that, the fire prevention. So I haven't had like that interaction, but so far from the training that Chaplain Zucker has had us airmen practice, I feel 100% confident. I would know where to go. I would know who to call. I would know exactly like the steps that I need to take. And I know there's more to learn. I know this is a new incentive and it's going to grow from here. But as of right now, I can just feel the confidence in the airman when he trains us up and gives us scenarios like that on how to approach it.
Thank you, ma'am.
So as I mentioned, we have assist, and that's a big part of what we're going to incorporate Hope into. And kind of going back to the mission question as well, it's very visible. And so we're going to have these tabs at Davis Monthan. We have a green and white cross. It's very visible. So my first week there, I see a person wearing one of those crosses, and they're like, yeah, what does that mean to you? And they're like, well, I know that if somebody comes to me, I can help them through something. And if I can't help them, they can go. And so we've had over 155 interventions just because of that visibility, just because airmen have been trained to respond. And that has helped the Chaplain Corps. I mean, we went 8 to 10 months without a suicide after having like a rash of suicides. That's the type of training just because, and the visibility, it's a both and our airmen are very confident in that just because they've been trained for that. And so that's what training really we're getting after for that mission.
Thank you so much. We are going to start wrapping up, and I want everyone to think for very quickly, maybe two people, what you foresee as future challenges. So as you think through that, whoever is brave enough, quick answer, maybe 30 seconds. But I also want to highlight that there are probably a lot of questions that every single one of you have, like, what about privileged communication? Funding, what the hard questions that we actually have a frequently asked question document. It should be loaded on the Air Force Connect app. If it's not, it will be by the end of today. And it has a ton of questions that have come through on what exactly we're talking about and what are some of the foreseen challenges, like I said, with privileged communication and what. So the official answers are all in there, so go check it out. The other thing is we mentioned the Air Force Chaplain Corps College. Sergeant Mena, who just showed up, he's here and he can talk to you at the booth on what are they doing on regards to HOPE and how they're helping us standardize that training for our HOPE specialists. And anybody else that's wearing a HOPE t-shirt can also talk on what they've been experiencing at their base. So a 30-second quick answer on a future challenge, and then we'll wrap up.
One of the impacts would be, of course, is if they think we're in our silo of excellence. The great thing about HOPE is it goes across the spiritual resiliency spectrum. It touches all the facets of the CAF. And then it's just something I think HOPE could really work with any other the helping agencies, with any of the programs that they're working on. You know, when you start talking to your senior leaders, they want to know how we can all work together, because we are much better together. So remind them that it crosses the spiritual resiliency spectrum. It's something that I think will complement all the other helping agencies.
Thank you.
I think one would be continuity across bases. So everybody's going to do their program differently, but when you have an airman move from one base to the next, I think there's going to be an expectation that they want to get plugged in at the next location, and it would really suck if they showed up and they're like, well, we don't even have a program to get you plugged in. People want to help, people want to contribute, and what better place to do that than at the chapel to give those people those opportunities. So, here's a plug. Everybody probably should consider doing this at their base, because there's going to be airmen showing up who expect and want to be a part of that.
And we'll end with this. Who's ready to take Airman Shields at her next assignment? All right, thank you so much. Now I'm going to invite Chaplain Kitchens and Chief Chambers to come over and give us some closing remarks on what HOPE means to them as well.
Sir,
So
I'm glad you didn't jump on the stage like yesterday, because I don't think I could do that.
I don't think I can. The HOPE tab that was just on the screen, is there a way to bring that back? So anyway, well, if you can't see it, we're rocking it right here. So this is what that tab will look like. So it's an easy identifier. So when someone sees HOPE, they know we can connect with that individual because they've been trained, they represent the greater good. So let me just go ahead and throw some facts out. Number one, General Brown and Chief Bass are all in with us. In fact, I feel their hands in mine and Chief's back pushing us forward, accelerating change. Because they recognize what, as you heard yesterday, they recognize what we as a Chaplain Corps bring to the fight. They also recognize there's not enough of us. And how can we be force multipliers? And how can we champion our causes in a greater way? So you heard from the early adopters, and they're doing phenomenal foundational work to set the framework. And I think this is the important takeaway. We're not giving you a headquarters designed pre-packaged program. This is what General Brown does not endorse. But instead, this is, I will say, from the installation roots up, a design that can be adapted to any location. They were very clear that they did not want us to give a package that we designed and say, oh, here is your program you must execute. So you haven't heard us say, you're required to do this. But what you have heard is you're going to have people showing up saying, I want to be part of your HOPE team. I'm a HOPE specialist. And they're going to be looking for a place to plug in. And by the way, commanders talk to commanders. Command chiefs talk to command chiefs. And when something good starts happening, they want more of it. And so commanders are going to come and ask you. So all we're asking is take a look at this. I know, I see it in your eyes. There's several of you. You're poking holes in this and saying, oh, that's not going to work. No, I don't believe this. No, you're going to have to prove this to me. Trust me, I've sat there with Chief and done the exact same thing. And it's not that we're trying to undermine a program. We're trying to make it the absolute best framework that we can possibly do. So all I ask is keep an open mind. Keep an open mind. Ask yourself, how will this work where we serve? And at the end of the day, how can we best fortify our airmen, guardians, and families? And we're giving you an opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Hope team, I couldn't be prouder. Like, it was really hard to sit still and not jump up and cheer. So thank you for everything that you have done to get to today. So there's intentionality of having a beta test so that we can have lessons learned as we approach the initial operational capability of the IOC year for the year out into fully operational capable. So I will say there's intentionality of layering in policy for the special experience identifier, for an experience set. This is not solely a first-term airman or a first-term guardian initiative. This is everybody, everywhere, all at once should have the opportunity to serve. And what was really exciting being at the Air Force Sergeants Association last week is we had some representatives, early implementers wearing their Hope tabs, and graduated white ropes that are now tech sergeants are going, wait, what is that? And they are excited. I already have emails of how do I plug in? How do I help Maxwell Air Force Base get this initiated at their location? Because I am all in and I've been waiting for this. And so it is really exciting that there are people coming out and they're saying, hey, here, Air University helped with the marketing, with the design, for the logo. Like, there are so many people that want to see this succeed that they're coming out every direction and saying, we want to be a part of this because we believe in what the Chaplain Corps can do that only the Chaplain Corps can do. So hit up the app for the Air Force Connect. You'll be able to see those frequently asked questions. You'll be able to see the bullet background papers that we're providing at the highest levels from our senior leaders, because this was a request for information from General Brown. How do we do this? How do we connect? And we are the premier peer-to-peer initiative out there. Every other peer-to-peer initiative that is in the Air Force is looking to the Chaplain Corps and saying, how are you doing that? You are light years ahead, and we want to be a part of that. So we're working with the Fortify the Force initiative. We're working with DAF peer-to-peer symposium, and how do we work together to make this a reality? And so I will just bring it home with what Chaplain Wilson and Senior Carter said. What is getting in the way? What is keeping you from being a part of instilling hope in every airman, guardian, and family? We need you. Go find a hope specialist. Go find somebody wearing the Hope t-shirt. Ask your hard questions. They are ready and they'll be here all day long. I hope that you enjoyed the start of this day, because I'm fired up.
Let me just say a very special thanks to this working group. So that's another point, is we didn't cook this up in our office. You don't want that. What you want is you want the SMEs on the ground. So thank you for the outstanding work you've done bringing this in the presentation today, and go ask them your questions.